So the new chapter of Blue Lock just dropped, and all I have to say is, I was right. Me and a lot of other people guessed that Hiori would have an awakening this chapter, and find his true ego. But how it happened is something that we really couldn't guess. But just like in the past, the author of Blue Lock completely surprised us with it and made it truly amazing. This chapter is definitely one of my favorites in a while, and in today's video I'm going to break it down and go over it for you, since this chapter does have a lot to cover. The chapter starts going back to the flashback that we saw in chapters 205 and 206 about Hiori's past, and the moment he realized that his parents don't truly care about him, but rather his abilities. Hiori then says after that day, he only played soccer to not break up his family, and because this couldn't ignite his passion, he began coasting through life trying to find something that could ignite his passion. But then we get to see a talk with him and Karasu, where Karasu says, all that crap about people's actions, think about that later, start with yourself, believe in yourself, and find something that truly gets your blood pumping, because if you don't start there, you'll keep running in circles. But Hiori believes this is impossible because things like expectations for him are just a curse that are weighing him down. The way he words it specifically is that they're chains weighing him down, which could be reference to his volume cover, where he has the chains but they're also connected to some kind of weight, it looks like. And trust me, we get more insight on this later and it's actually pretty interesting. He goes on to say that he only went to Blue Lock because he didn't want to go home, but clinging desperately to that ego, he managed to hang on and survive. So even though Hiori's ego wasn't truly strong at that point in time whatsoever, he was still able to survive due to his pure skills, which is honestly pretty amazing, and it should give us hope for what he's going to be like when he gets his awakening. We then go back to the game where the Ubers are counterattacking and they're playing at a super high level, and Hiori says that the quality of their combination plays is something that he's never experienced before, and the fact that Baro came to get the best out of them is a king-like move. But even though he's acting like the king, he's still not moving selfishly. And even though he's a selfish jerk, the aura he emanates makes people trust and follow him. Hiori then thinks that the people that can become the #1 striker probably have an ability that makes people follow them. And this is very interesting for what it means for Isagi, but I'll get onto that in the later half of the video. Hiori continues to say that he never really cared about being #1, but then he saw Isagi, a player who sees the game the same as he does, but also has their eyes set on being the world's #1. And he goes on to say that he has the key to Isagi Yoichi's evolution, and he's the only one who can unlock his full potential. He says that those golden lucky opportunities that only he can see, they're his reasons to fight. And Isagi has the potential to become the world's #1 striker, but if they fail to capitalize on this golden opportunity, there's a good chance that the world will forget about his potential. But Hiori is completely determined on unlocking his potential and living in a future where Isagi dominates the world stage. Since to Hiori, that's a future worth living for. So Hiori's one and only goal is to make Isagi Yoichi the king. At this time during the game, Nico has the ball and Lorenzo comes out to take it from him, but he ends up getting pressed by both Kaiser and Isagi, and he says that they actually fell for his trap. And at that moment, he sends it over to Baro, who doesn't have a defender on him. And since he was right in front of the penalty area, if he gets the ball, it's a guaranteed goal. But right before he could get it, Hiori slides in and gains the ball, calling the Ubers team idiots since he has Metavision 2, which surprised both Lorenzo and Baro. Hiori then says that his ego isn't something that's pre-planned for him, which is probably in reference to his parents planning for him to become the #1 world striker. He then says that it's an ego that holds the key to the future. It's an ego that he found for himself. And on this page, we can see a key unlocking Hiori's chains that had the weight of his parents' expectations on them, which signifies him overcoming his past and forging his own ego. Meaning that not only does Hiori have Metavision right now, but he's also just had an ego awakening, which would make his ability skyrocket. And with him on the side of Isagi, they may be unstoppable. And from what we can see, Hiori is the only person to get rid of this chain of his, or at least the first person to do it on screen, in such a way that we can visibly see the chain break. Now in my opinion, there's two ways to interpret this. #1 is that every time someone has a major ego awakening, the chain goes away. For example, like when Baro got destroyed by Isagi but came back with a new ego, or when Bachuru was almost left behind by Isagi and Rin but came back with his own ego as well. It's possible that those chains were also broken, but we don't literally see them break. But another possibility is that the chains represent your passion to become the #1 striker, instead of it just being your overall passion for soccer itself. Some evidence for this would be that Sei's chain begins crumbling away after he gives up his dream to become the #1 world striker. But we still know that he's very passionate about soccer, and in fact we see this in his first chapter of appearance, where he's surprised that the Blue Lock actually exists. And we see his ego also flaring up. And we also see him in the same chapter say that his dream is to win the Champions League. meaning that he still has passion for soccer, but he just doesn't want to become the number 1 world striker anymore. So in my opinion, I think the interpretation that the chains represent your passion to become the number 1 world striker makes the most sense due to the examples of Hiori and Seitoshi. I believe the only other time we see chains breaking is when Shigiri breaks his chains and goes his full speed. But even those chains weren't the chains that were on his neck connected to his collar, I guess you could say, but rather these chains were only connected to his right leg. So even that example isn't really a fair comparison. Another very interesting part about this chapter is when Hiori says that the person that has the potential to become the number 1 striker probably has an ability to kind of attract people towards them, just like Baro does to the Ubers team. And the reason this is interesting is because Isagi also has the same ability. He's done it multiple times, and I can name 3 different occasions right now, with the first one being with Shigiri, who originally didn't want to become strong and only came to Blue Lock to find a reason to give up his passions, but was swayed by Isagi, who reminded him of his old self with just how fiercely he played the game. Number 2 is with Kuon, who was a literal traitor to the Team Z team. He was literally in a completely winning position and could have just left Team Z to completely die off, but when faced with the decision, he decided to just jump in himself, even getting himself a red card. And another time is with Nagi, where he chose Isagi over Reo because Isagi was the first one to make him experience loss. And with his newfound loss, this made Nagi truly enjoy the game of soccer. So the way it's shaping up right now, it definitely does seem like Isagi has the abilities to become the number 1 world striker. It seems like every single quality that the number 1 striker should have, Isagi should also have, whether that be his attraction ability, his direct shot, or his meta vision. But either way you spin it, it's pretty fair to say that Isagi should become the number 1 world striker, or at least has the potential to. And this is even commented on by the current world's number 1 striker, Noah, where he says that Isagi's meta vision could even lead him to his spot. But when you think of other people that have this attraction ability, not a lot of people come to mind. You can say maybe like Rin, who was able to coordinate with the top 3 players in the selection matches, but other rivals of Isagi like Kunigami or Shido Ryusei don't really have this ability to attract people towards them. And this is one of the few things that sets Isagi apart from his rivals. And this ability is probably what will allow him to take over the Germany team. Isagi has been slowly but surely gaining allies on the Germany team, and he has now gained a player with meta vision and with Seitoshi levels of passing. Not to mention that this player's only ego is to make Isagi the best that he can, meaning that the rivalry between the Germany team and Blue Lock just became a lot less one-sided. And the way that the game is going right now, I wouldn't be surprised if Hiori and Isagi score the next goal and temporarily take over the Germany team. But for that to happen, they would have to make a truly amazing goal to show up what Kaiser did in the past few chapters. Also, to speak on the extent of Hiori's meta vision, I do believe it is pretty top tier. It should at least be on the same level as Isagi and Kaiser's, and it was able to easily read through and show up both Nico and Lorenzo's play. And like I mentioned before, Baro was in the penalty area at this moment, so if he were able to take this shot, he probably would have synced it right in, but Hiori successfully saved the game. I think this without a doubt will put Hiori on the starting 11 for the Germany team, and since we know that Hiori is supposed to play in the next game, he may also become a part of Isagi's team, playing purely for his own evolution. But that's all I have for today. If you enjoyed the video, make sure of course to like the video and subscribe to my channel, and comment down below what you think of the chapter. Goodbye.